Waking up at 12:14. Talk so much all night that I forget how to be. Making sure that you're okay. Hope it's not too hard when I reply with a light. Lately it's been hard to dream. The story's all messed up and I don't wanna repeat. Excuses leave anxiety out day. Please don't think that we're the same exact day. Latest is my name, alright. So maybe we can say goodbye just tonight. I really don't want to fight. I'm trying my best to be polite.
YouTube fam, Facebook fam, we made it. How you guys doing? Always good to be here for another live stream with you all. It's been a short time. This week has been a very busy week. And so I'm glad to be able to come in on today with you all after a busy week. Winding down a little bit. Good to see the Dame. Yeah, let me go through here real quick. Let me first say, hey, Unique View in the house. Appreciate you. Blind Guy, his wife, their life. Always good to see you. Thanks for tuning into the stream. We even got the Dane here, the long Joseph BS. The reason why, let me tell you, the reason why I do that is because I like to give just a little bit of time for people to join up. I don't just jump right in. And so with me, my streams will always, start. And what I noticed too about the algorithm, at least for me right now, YouTube algorithm, when I'm streaming, it doesn't even send the notifications out until um, like a few minutes into the stream. Like so, you send a notification and it's like, hey, talk with Frank Gooden is live, that kind of thing. I'm usually 2-3 minutes into the stream before the notification even goes out. So for me, yeah, sorry about the long intro. Mine are gonna always be that way, roughly 7 minutes from when I first started, and then we jump right in. So please bear with it if you possibly can. The Dane. We got my frat brother in the house, Richard. Richard Smith, good to see you. As always, hopefully you jump in a little bit later to jump in on this conversation. And I intend for this really to be kind of more of a casual conversation, where we talk about of course, the impact of the very very tragic anniversary of this date, horrific anniversary of this date. 20 years ago, today is when we had the insane, absolutely insane circumstance of having to witness, and some of us experience airplanes flying into the Twin Towers, as well as one crashing into a wing of the Pentagon, another crashing apparently on its way to, what they're saying is that apparently it was on its way to the Capitol. So absolutely crazy day. I'll jump right in with sort of just remembering what it was for me. It was just a normal day for me. I woke up in the morning, had the news on. I was living in Tallahassee at the time. I had moved back to Tallahassee after film school to work on a couple independent film projects that I was pursuing at the time. And just imagine, completely different world now, you know, um, completely different world. Donovan, so glad to have you here, brother. Um, I definitely hope that you call in. I'm going to go ahead and put the link now just to have it for people. Let's see here. Um, I'm copying it now. Shout out to my brother Donovan. Brother is a outstanding brother who lives up in, I think he's still in New York. Let me know if you're still actually in New York. Met him on the festival tour for my first indie feature film, Love Trap. And we've been riding like four flats ever since. And we stay distant, we're distant, we're far apart, but we always keep in touch. And really, unfortunately, for me, that's kind of my story with everybody because I'm so busy. I don't call people. That's all on me. That's more my fault than anything. But we always keep up. All right, beautiful. Donovan says he's still up in New York. I catch up with people as I can, but I'm doing too much right now. If I told you all the stuff I was doing right now, y'all would be like, boy, stop. My vivid life making it. Thank you for coming on in and joining us as we have kind of just a real, I kind of intend for this to be just a real conversation about what happened, how it affected us, if it affected us, sort of how maybe try to have a collective experience about how the event has shaped the country, and different things that have happened in the country. And then later at the very end, and I know people here for it, maybe even talk about some of the conspiracy theories that are out there about it, because there are definitely some things about it that are worthy of being questioned. We'll put it like that. So to finish my story, it was just a normal day for me. Woke up and, woke up to the news that it was being reported that a plane had hit one of the Twin Towers. So you're sitting there watching like, whoa, this does not happen. Obviously. What in the world? And as they were reporting that, Boom, you see the news of a plane has hit the second tower. And that's when you just know that from here on out, like it's really on. This can't be happening. You're looking around a little bit like, is this, I'm sitting here watching this little, I had a 21-inch TV at the time, watching this little TV. Is this real? You felt like you were participating in a movie in a way. So it was absolutely out of this world, mind blowing experience. So what I want to do is start out for the people who will watch this later, and just to kind of set the stage properly, I guess you could say, is I'm going to run a couple clips. One is 4 minutes and one is three, that just take us back to a little bit. It helps take us back a little to the events of that day. Before I do that, let's see here. Yeah, we got some people just kind of type it in the chat. My vivid life was in the DMV at that time, just getting into work. We had federal government clients in DC and Virginia. It was an extremely sobering event. Extremely sobering event. The kind of event where you simply cannot believe that it's happening. And we're only talking about that particular day, and I want us to kind of get into a little bit. But before I do, you know what? I'm going to share the first of just a couple of videos that will take us back a little bit, okay, on this anniversary. All right, I'm going to make sure that you all can see this. Make it full screen. And I'll go ahead and play it.
American 11, are you trying to call?
I'm picking up on the phone. Our number one has been staffed, and our five has been staffed.
Welcome from Washington. I am in a situation with American 11, a possible hijack.
What's going on? Get back to the attic again. Eddie, you there? Eddie? Eddie? What?
737? What?
In the world, who are you talking to? Oh, God. Oh, my God.
United 175 here. We have some problems over here right now. We might have a hijack over here too. Joe, this is my name is hijack. Things don't go well. I'm looking good. I just want you to know I absolutely love you. I want you to do good. Go absolutely fine. Thanks for my parents and everybody. And I just totally love you and I hope you like that there. Thank you.
What are those people going to do? All the elevators are blocked out.
Oh my God! So both towers are now.
Okay, I got aircraft technology to the White House.
Kansas City, get going to Kansas City.
Yeah, stop all the markers.
United 93, traffic here, 1 o'clock, 12 miles east on 370. Negative contact, we're looking at United 93. United 93, wait, we're here to start again. I got that vision, huh? Get ready to be, get on the ball.
Tuesday, 9:47 a.m.
Hi, baby. Baby, you have to listen to me carefully. I'm on a plane that's been hijacked. I'm on the plane. I'm calling from the plane. I want to tell you I love you. Please tell my children that I love them very much. And I'm so sorry, babe. I hope to be able to see your face again, baby. I love you. Bye.
We're 56865. We have I believe it is a Boeing 757. Can you see him up there, sir?
That's confirmed. It looks like he's rocking his wings.
Roger.
He's rocking back and forth.
We're 56865. Advise you stay away from that aircraft. Go north fast as you can.
United 93, you got information on that guy?
Yeah, he's down.
He's down?
Yes.
When did he land?
He did not land.
Oh, he's down?
Yeah, somewhere up northeast of Camp David.
Honestly, I just want to let you know I love you and I'm stuck in this building in New York. I just want to smoke and you just want to know that I love you always.
And from the two locations, right? Then the students in the back, no one really died except the man.
No. Then you're gonna die. Then say your prayers. We're gonna think positive because you gotta help each other get off the floor. Now.
Okay, so I'm pulling that. I'm going to immediately go right into, so that was a produced video.
I have not been down to Ground Zero or to the museum or any areas.
That was a produced video. Let me put
American 11, are you trying to call?
Want to know the link, the TSA link, and I can list that. I can put the link in if anybody wants to actually link to that. But that was something that was produced that as sort of a encapsulation of sort of everything, all the events that initiated that day. And so I'm going to pivot into a different video by the National Geographic that focuses a little bit more of what happened at the two towers in New York. So that's a short one. It's 3 minutes and 20 seconds. I'm gonna go ahead and play that one, and then we can dive in, because I see you, David Lopez. I hear you. We're gonna get into that aspect of it as well. I want to do that a little bit later in the broadcast, but we definitely want to kind of at least get to the two towers portion, what it was like for the people on the ground that day. All right, and then we're going to pivot to some personal experiences as well. I'm looking forward to that. All right, let me share this screen.
Just before 10 a.m., a call comes through from the vice president.
I could hear a noise on the phone. I looked around, and I could see that the desk in front of me was shaking. I didn't know what that was. People going under the desk. I heard the chief of the department yell, "The tower has come down."
And I'm gonna pause real quick. Please, please, there are some of us who have a visceral response to seeing this person right here. So please put on, please deal with that. We're gonna look past this particular person is kind of doing some of this talking on this to really focus on what happened instead. And maybe later we can bring this individual up. But I just want to make a little quick note here to look past. Do me a favor, look past this dude for now.
The tower has come down. It looked like nuclear cloud. This like gray smoke coming toward the building. Things flying through the street, things hitting the side of the building. And then all of a sudden it became dark outside. It became totally dark outside.
My name is Division 6 Acting K, urgent. Division 6 Acting, go. You respond down to the World Trade Center. You're maintaining radio communication and advise Manhattan Dispatch what exactly is going on, K. We are unable to make any kind of communication with you.
It collapsed. The top floors collapsed down. I saw it blow and then ran like hell. Thank God. I'm 69, but I can still run. There's got to be firemen trapped back there, though.
When the chief said the tower came down, I didn't think he meant the entire Twin Towers. The big radio towers on the top. And I thought those towers had come down and hit our building.
The 10-second collapse instantly kills hundreds of civilians and emergency personnel.
This loud thunder, we looked up and the top of half of the building was actually coming down like dominoes, and it just fell over to the left. And everybody started running. It was a nightmare. It was a nightmare.
Okay, so I wanted to open with that just as an intro to the show, as a reminder of just how traumatizing this was for the nation. You know, when you...
This week is traditionally the peak of hurricane season. We're doing a series of reports we call the...
You know, when you see these images, you know, and these are the kinds of images that came on and were streaming steadily over time, you know. So once this happened, it was always on, you know, it was on like, you know, from the moment that the first plane hit, you got 24-hour coverage of what was going on. And so you have to just, for those who, there's some people who watch this who were born after. And so for them, it's history. You know, for us, for those of us that lived through it, this is almost still like a current event, to be honest with you. I see here, Friendsgiving, letting us go. I remember this like it was yesterday, you know, which is so true. For many of us, it's still like a current event, but for many of us, it's history now. So when for those of you who were not there or too young to be really cognizant of how it affected us, it was an extremely traumatizing event. And it had ramifications. I just talked about how I remember how it was for me. But what I'd like to do now, if he's ready, is I want to bring up my brother Donovan, who, this is going to be my first time seeing this brother in years. In years right here. It's so good to see you, bro. I mean, we've been staying in touch, you know, via Facebook.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Every now and then, but shout out to you. How you living, man?
Oh man, I'm blessed, man. It's really good to see and hear you. I see pictures on Facebook. You and the you're beautiful family. So yeah, we keep in touch, man. It's funny because I just saw some pictures from us when we were at Martha's Vineyard.
Ah.
Yeah. So that was a great time. We had a good
Last
time.
one passed. Marcus
Yeah,
Vineyard.
exactly.
Dude,
Yeah.
like 15 years
It
ago.
was a while, man. It was a while.
Easy.
Yeah,
You
because
know,
we had
we didn't got a little, we didn't got a little aged,
oh
fine line on us now.
well some of us aged, brother. You still look exactly the same, man.
Well, I drink a lot of water. I drink a lot of water.
That's what's up, man. That's what's up. But yeah, man. But first of all, man, thank you very much for inviting me. It was definitely my pleasure to come on.
Yes.
This one always hits me a little different. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? It always hits me a little different because I have a first, hand experience with what was going on that day. So every
Yes.
year,
Before you start too, let me couch it for the people who are with us. That's the main reason. Like, it's from my perspective, I'm down in Florida, and for a lot of us, we only witnessed. We see the images on television, so of course I have a point of view. But it was so when I saw on your Facebook page how you made mention of the personal experience that you had, I was like, this is an opportunity for someone who was experiencing it right there to really, really give us, a much closer point of view of the experiences. So just thank you for being on the show and for being able to talk about these things.
my pleasure, man. My pleasure.
So what was it like? Tell us kind of right from the beginning, what would it describe your day and what the setting was?
Wow, it's okay. Well, it's funny because I was just telling my wife this morning. I was like, because it's in New York, it's sunny today. It's a beautiful, gorgeous day, and it's identical to the day it was 20 years ago. September 10th of 2011 was torrential rains. It rained a whole day. I remember it was like a stormy day because I worked that day as well. Then the morning of September 11th, I remember saying, "Wow, I'm glad it's not raining." It was such a beautiful, pretty day, quiet, nothing different, nothing. It was just a nice day. So basically, I was working on a music video project. We was going to be shooting in Brooklyn, and we were shooting in Greenpoint, Brooklyn, and we were shooting right off the pier, right off the edge of Brooklyn, so you could see Manhattan. Right there. And we was just north of where the World Trade Center was. So we were setting up and getting stuff ready, moving equipment and getting ready to start shooting. Then we heard this bang. It's like a big, just heard a bang. It just sounded real odd. So it was like, what's that? So somebody ran over to the water. They're like, oh my God, the World Trade Center is on fire. So we all ran down to the water. So literally it was like maybe 50 yards. So we ran down to the water, then we were able to see the World Trade Center and was like, oh my God, what happened? So of course, not thinking that what eventually was the cause was actually the cause. We're like, damn, what could have happened? It looked like maybe a small plane might have lost control and just ran into the World Trade Center. Of course, like, just felt bad. Your heart went out to the people on the plane, the people that was in the buildings. Like, oh, that's a horrible accident. So as we're standing there, and most people like, they're kind of using their phones to call, try to see who they knew that was down there, just to make sure that the, people are okay. And I remember I was looking down at my phone, and I heard a friend of mine. He said, oh my God, why is that plane flying so low? And then I looked up and I saw a second plane go into the building. So that's when it just kind of hit us like bricks to say this was on purpose, like this was real. So when it's cliche, but the saying that the time stood still.
Yes.
It was literally for that moment. Everything stopped because it was like your brain was trying to understand what was happening. It's like that was on purpose. Like somebody meant to do that. Like, why would that happen? So then it just kind of like bang, was like, oh my God, panic. Everybody was like, okay, we gotta go. We gotta, So we started moving stuff, getting back, trying to, pack up equipment and get whatever. And we're still trying to wrap our minds about what's happening. But by that time, they shut down everything. We were in Brooklyn. They shut down all bridges, all roads that was leading out of the borough. So there was a lighting equipment rental house that was not far from where we were shooting. So we just went over there, and we knew the owner, because we have, worked on several different projects or whatever. So we were just there, just kind of killing time, trying to figure out how we're going to get home, and making calls when we could. But most of our calls, our phones weren't working anymore because the towers. There were a lot of towers on the building. You know what I mean? So a lot of cell towers, because obviously that was the tallest building. So a lot of cell towers were connected to the World Trade Center and a lot of other buildings in the area. So at the same time, the owner's name is Tony Argento. He's a real estate guy. He owns several production houses out in New York.
I know that name.
Tony. You have to. If you worked in New York, Tony. Broadway Stages, Luna Lighting was his company. So we were over there, and he had connections with the fire department. So the fire department had reached out to him and asked, could they, can he bring in some generators and lights to help, light the area, because this was early in the day. This was like middle afternoon by at this point. And they knew they were going to run out of light. At some point it's going to be dark. So we saw they were loading up trucks, so we just jumped in to help, and we just started loading up cable and lights and stands and stuff like that. And they actually police escorted us in from Brooklyn. Like, we had a police escort in, and it seemed very surreal because, you've been to New York, so there's never a time where there's nobody on the streets. There's never a time where there's nobody on the roads. Empty. No vehicles, no movement. The only movement you saw were people walking, and they were walking away from Manhattan. So I remember they drove us down the Brooklyn Brooklyn Queens Expressway. Then we got to the Brooklyn Bridge. So we're about to cross the Brooklyn Bridge, and all you see is all these people. They have soot and dust all over them. They're just like, it's the exodus.
Just like that white soot that we saw just now. Okay.
So you had a lot of people that were just walking into Brooklyn, even if they didn't live in Brooklyn. Everybody was just trying to get out of Manhattan. Same thing was happening. People trying to go north, they just started walking north because all the trains were stopped, no buses stopped running, everything was gone. So all you can do is literally on foot was escape. So they brought us into Manhattan, and they brought us down by the West Side Highway, and we had to wait over there. They had all the rescue vehicles and support vehicles and technicians and stuff that was on the West Side Highway, and they said they couldn't bring anybody in because they were waiting for Tower 7, Building 7, not Tower, I'm sorry, Building number 7, is World Trade 7, was on fire. So the lower levels of it was on fire, so they had to wait for that one to collapse. And before, because they didn't want to bring anybody into the area because they didn't know what was going to happen because everything was unstable. So that took a couple of hours. So we were kind of waiting there on standby. Building finally came down. Then they brought us in. So they brought us down to the World Trade. We had a couple of trucks. We had one truck that was on the west side, and another one that went over to like the east side. And we started unloading equipment. We were running we had the portable generators, so we had those running, and we was getting lights ready. But the thing is, like, every time you did anything, you had to be careful of where you walked, where you moved, because if you've been to the World Trade Center, obviously when it was there, people don't realize this. You see pictures of how big it is and how tall the buildings were. But literally, if you stood at the front door of the World Trade Center and you looked straight up, you couldn't see the top of the building. But now all of that was in the ground. You know what I'm saying? All 110 stories of that was in the ground, and there was a hole in the ground. So basically, when you walked across stuff, you had to be careful. So they had these seismic readers, sensors and stuff that was set on buildings in the area to make sure you know, that nothing was going to collapse because you didn't know what the infrastructure was and what the damage was. So there was a bunch of alerts going on every time, and every time the alarm went off, everybody just scattered. You know what I mean? So basically, because we had lights that you can physically carry over rubble and you can on piles and stuff like that, and they were bright enough to light the area. Because all they had at the time were like the road safety lights, and they're on those, you know, carts and stuff, so they could only get but so close. We were able to get stuff in closer. So the first night, the evening of September 11th, the lights that were lighting the area that was closest were the lights that we actually brought out there to help the rescue workers.
That we saw.
Yeah. Now the thing is that, man, it's one of the things I always tell people. It's been 20 years now, but there's some things you don't forget. Like I'll never forget the smell that I smelled.
Tell us about that. That's something we would never be able to experience.
It was, I feel like it's like a smell that I've never smelled before, because it was a combination of steel, burnt steel, and wood and mortar and flesh and you know, and things, and the dust, asbestos, and you know, and all these things that were just culminated into one thing. It's like, you know, it's just something that you just never get out. You know what I mean? Like, because it was just so. It was, once again, it was just so real. Because like literally, when I'm standing at the edge of the hole, like literally, I'm able to stand at the edge of the hole and I'm looking down, and you just.
Can I show real? I'm gonna throw this up, and you tell me. Does this look like? This is a photo I found.
Yes.
Kind of reminiscent of what maybe people saw.
Absolutely. That's what. So basically, we were climbing on top of some.
You want to put it back down?
Yeah, we were climbing on top of things, of certain areas of that we were able to get on.
I see how. Just not sorry to interrupt you, but what you were saying in terms of the scale. Look how little the people are here.
Right.
In comparison to all this wreckage.
Yeah, and that's the thing that people don't really realize, and pictures don't really tell the story. Like, you know what I mean? It really doesn't. And just to understand the magnitude of what happened, because like I said, to have 110 stories of brick and steel and glass collapse all the way down, it was crazy. So, because I remember when we were still in Brooklyn, before we went into the city, I remember we saw the first tower go down, right?
Okay.
Collapse. This is after the plane. So, and we saw it collapse. And before it collapsed, we just figured, damn, it's going to take them a long time to fix that. It's going to take them a long time to repair that, you know? But then when it collapsed, you're like, it's gone. Like, it's gone. Like forever now. Like, that's, you know, that's gone. And it was such a landmark landscape, you know, skyline, that you saw the towers. Like, if you were traveling from the south, whatever, up 95, when you saw the towers, you're like, okay, I'm an hour away from the city. You know what I'm saying? Like, that was to tell you, that was kind of like your marker. So when you saw the towers, you're like, okay, I'm an hour to the bridge, and I'll be at the bridge in an hour, that type of thing. Then you realize that the one tower was gone. Like, wow, it's never going to look the same with just one tower, you know? And then the second tower went down. And then it was just like, it's not there. So, you know, and even with that, like, even to this day, if I'm looking at the skyline, I can't remember exactly where the towers were, because you knew, because it was just always there. It was just, you know, they were just always there. So
get into it. That's probably not representative of the skyline right there. I'm trying to find one.
But that's a good idea. The thing is that I'll look at the skyline. Let's say if I was at that same angle, I would look at it and say, okay, wait, was it over there? Wait, was it over there? Was it over there? Because it was such a distinctive point. You know what I'm saying? That you know, it was just always there. And even when I drove in that day, I remember driving in, and I saw the towers like I always do every time. You know what I mean? So we were down there. So basically, we had two sets of people setting up lights. We had one that was setting up light on the pile, what was called the pile, called the pile, where they were trying to do the rescue. side. Then we had the triage side.
Okay.
That's where it was basically the makeshift morgue. I wasn't on that side. I was on the pile side with the recovery side. But I knew guys that was on the other side, and they were lighting a triage area that it wasn't really triage because it was really the only way you were able to recognize anything was by the clothing that they had on. You know what I mean? They were burnt, and if any bodies were there, they were dismembered, burnt, and unrecognizable. You know, if they had like a uniform or something like that, a shirt, you could tell that once was a body. But it was like there wasn't really much there, and that's why I said like the smells of that was just so distinct and pronounced that it was just a combination of everything that you can imagine, and it's burnt because you got to think of the jet fuel that and the temperatures that it was burning once it hit the struck the building. The jet fuel, and remember these were cross country planes,
Like,
so they were full of fuel. They had only left from Boston, you know, from a close distance. So so once that jet fuel got ignited, it just incinerated things. So everything burned, you know. So yeah, so we were there that night. Most of us stayed, you know, pretty long down there, just just to help out because we felt like after we set up lights and stuff like that, we just helped on a
Yeah, it sounds like you changed your whole immediate kind of agenda. Like whatever you were working on, what it was, and this took over, right?
Man, look, in a way you really don't even understand. Like I said, I mean, at the time I wasn't married and I have children, so obviously that would have taken on a different,
Had you been married, yeah,
and a different perspective or a different sense of urgency.
right.
But at the time I wasn't. So it was just more so about what else can we do? Because we like I said, we set up lights and stuff like that, and we just got on the bucket line and started helping them because literally they're just passing. You might have seen pictures of the bucket line. They're just pulling stuff out and dumping stuff and bringing stuff down and stuff like that. I was actually on the pile when they brought the last surviving person out. And it was one of those things where it was kind of like a feeling of triumph, if you can say, that one person got out because I kept putting myself in there and saying to myself, what if I was down there and I was still alive? I would want them to do what they can to try to get me out as well. So we didn't care.
When was that? Just interrupting. Like when you say the last person, was that evening? Was it the next day? Like how long?
No, that was that evening. That was that evening. It was that night. Because literally it was unless something happened after I left, and I left like I don't know, wee hours in the morning. But the last because it took a while to get him out, and it was a big cheer when they got him out. It was a big cheer. Like everybody just felt great that somebody got out of there. And I don't know whatever happened to him. I don't know I don't even know if it was a he or a she, to be honest with you. I just remember it was a person that was able to get out because they just kept yelling, "We got him! We got him! We got him!" And it was a great feeling. But you was kind of hopeful that other people can get out too. But not long after that, it turned from a rescue to a recovery.
Yeah.
Because it was just like there was just no because you had people in the next throughout the night. The next days that were down there, you had climbers, mountain climbers, rescue workers and stuff like that were scaling down there to try to find bodies and try to find people. And it was a point where it's like nobody else is down here, or
to this day, I read reports that there are still over 1,000 people who that recovery effort, if you will, continues because there are over 1,000 people who still have not yet been found.
Right. It's and the goal was try to identify everybody, and that's what they were continuing to try to do is to try to identify people because the families were looking to get some kind of closure. They knew that that their family member was down there and whatever. And they wanted to get some kind of closure. And as you may or may not know, I don't know. Every year they've always had a reading of the names of all the victims, and that kind of gives a little bit of solace to being the acknowledgement that continues on. As they've been doing it for the last 19 years, every year that they do it, and I always find myself, if I'm home, I have to watch it. Like I have to. I don't know the people that were there. I just know that all they did that day was go to work.
Right.
You know what I mean? A lot of us just do that. Like,
Right.
And I wrote, I don't know, I think you did see what I wrote when
I did too.
and and that was just
You
something.
know, if you wanted to read that, by the way, it's up to you. What I wanted to do is, it's totally your call. What I want to do is, you see here, I brought my brother Richard Smith up. He's my frat brother, my line brother. You know a little bit about the frat nine too, because I see you representing back there, Donovan.
Hey, you know what? I had to. That's not by accident. Come on now.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I had to represent because I was like, I know the alpha's in the house. I gotta.
That's right.
You know, I don't feel the need to do that. I don't feel the need to do that at all. You know, I mean.
Hey, and I'm married to your sorrow. I'm married to your sorrow too. So you know what I mean.
Okay, well, you know that is the redeeming quality. I understand. I understand. You know, my wife is an AKA as well. So
yeah,
I understand.
Yeah, I'm looking out. I got to get me one now.
You know, we drifting off topic. We're drifting off topic here. We got to bring it back. We got to bring it back.
He's about to get a shoe. He's gonna get a shoe knocked and throw it in from outside.
So check it out. So, Donovan, I wanted to give a little bit of time, and I don't know how much time you have because I want to respect your time. I know you want to come in and mention what you have. But please, you are going to stay as long as you can. I wanted to give an opportunity for Richard, since he was in the back, to also just talk about this portion of where were you the day of and how it affected you immediately before we can then pivot to some of the things that we have found we've been affected by it. So if that's cool, I want to go ahead and let you give us. All right, cool.
You know, a couple of things. You know, it was really kind of eerie because that day I was in Orlando. I was living in Orlando. I had moved from Jacksonville, and I was actually hosting a leadership conference for my organization. So my CEO was in town, my COO was in town, everybody was in town, and we were having this conference. And we had an office in New York. So we heard that the first plane had hit. We pulled the TV into this conference center. So all of us, 100 or so of us, are in this room looking at the TV. And then we see the second plane hit. And I have to be honest, because as I was kind of, listening to the intro to the show and Donovan to you, I don't remember a lot I remember where I was. I remember who I was with to some degree. But what I really remember are two things. One is how it made me feel. It made me feel immensely sad on two different fronts. Sad for the people that were on the plane that were trying to just get to wherever they were going, right? And also sad for the people that felt the need to commit such an atrocity. That somehow that these men had this anger, this hate, this whatever it was inside of them that made them train for months to fly a plane because they wanted it, with no intention of landing it except to crash it into a building for a statement. Mm-hmm. And I just remember feeling just an immense amount of sadness. Like how can humans feel this way? That they will then get on a plane knowing that they'll never get off and kill not only kill themselves and everyone on the plane. Right. I'm like, that's sad to me. That's just so. And I also remember talking to my staff and saying, go home. Just go home. There's nothing you can do here. Go home, talk to your family, talk to your loved ones. Because as you were playing us into this, Frank, You know, that was the last thing. That's the only thing people wanted to communicate at the end. You know, and for me, that's the message, is that you really, because I just wrote it down. You have to keep things in perspective. That, you know, as busy as your life may get, as hard as things may get from time to time, you have to maintain perspective on what's important. So when I think about 9/11, I think about clearly the people that lost their lives, those that perpetrated the atrocity, and their need to feel that way to do it. But I also feel that, you know, the bigger lesson for all of us to come out of it is that we have to have perspective. Because you hear those phone calls, they were like, tell my children I love them. Tell my wife I love her. Tell my parents I love them. You know, they were like, you know, this one person on the call that you played in was like, I want you to have a good life. I mean, these are people's dying words. It wasn't, man, I hope you can go and finish the report or the project we were working on. I hope that you can, you know, finish the email that I have in my drafts. It wasn't any of that. All of that faded to black. So for me, it just gave me, it continues to give me perspective and focus each and every year on what's important. And that, you know, there are times in my life gets a little out of balance, and, you know, but I make sure that it's an episode, and it's not always that way. And I focus on my wife, our children, our family, or what we do together, the memories that we create together. And I just wrote down a couple of different things. One is around, you know, you got to think about Kennedy was shot, right? Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, the space shuttle blowing up, Gulf wars, recessions, climate change, pandemic that we're currently in. All of these things have occurred, I would say nearly for being in my lifetime. And you have to think all of those events should give each of us perspective about what's important, and should ground us continually. And to, you know, I'm thinking about, you know, what was the world that created those gentlemen that got on the plane? I need to know what world that is, because I need to create another world. I need to help other individuals create other worlds, so we don't create people like this. You know, that's what I'm thinking about. That's what I'm thinking about. Is how do we create that world? Because I don't want people like that. Because anytime I see here, and I live in Atlanta, and there's this gentleman who is a war veteran who lives on the street here, and everybody knows him. The police department knows him, fire department. I mean, he's just kind of a fixture. And I just think that back to my son's first grade, like his yearbook. He has that homeless person has his face in a yearbook somewhere. And at some point, someone thought that he had promise. Someone thought that he was smart, that he was bright, that he was intelligent, that he was loving and caring. I think about everyone on that plane, whether it was the men that flew it into the building or those that were sitting in the seats, that they were children at one point that were full of promise, that were blank tablets. And I'm thinking, you know, how do we create a world where they don't grow up to be homeless or full of anger? So that's just a couple of my thoughts.
I know, right? So you don't know where I'm trying to go, but you all the way at the end with the let's what are the takeaways? You know me, takeaways at the end, brother. But it's all good. It's all good. We're getting a bit busy. So here's what I want to do. Let's and I'm gonna throw it to Donovan with this. But and maybe we have a slight conversation with it. But let's make sure we kind of recap what happened immediately after. And again, this is for everyone watching and for us to kind of get remember for ourselves. You remember right after it happened, you know, my man Bush, our president, came in and he had his you know, seminal moment, you know, letting everybody know that, you know, they're going to hear from everybody soon. And then later on, you know, we end up going into Afghanistan not too long afterwards. You got to remember, I'm setting the stage here. The trauma was real. That built that feeling across the entire country of we need to do something. We need to find out who did this. That was building. If you guys remember, if you did not feel a certain way about how we needed to act on this, you were accused of not being patriotic. So the patriotism angle was really high. We jump in, we go into Afghanistan, and we see here that's an interesting little parallel that we can talk about here because now we're at the end of that foray into Afghanistan. But then later on, our president talks about the axis of evil. You guys remember that, where it was the war on terrorism, and now this is the axis of evil, where he named out countries that didn't have anything to do with 9/11 at the time, but they were all a part of the axis of evil. And then, of course, as you know, you mentioned it, Saddam Hussein and Iraq going into Iraq. And the Iraqi War and everything that progressed from there. So all of these things are happening, and what I want to throw to Donovan is being someone who was on the ground and being there right there. The people will argue that these events are part of what made Rudy Giuliani a national figure. Because it put him right front and center. He was so. Donovan, speak a little bit to sort of the effects that you saw, either locally or you can speak nationally, of how it shaped the country and maybe shaped us, our collective response. How do you think it hit us?
Well, a couple of different ways. Let me just actually, real quick, just to say, I don't know if you or the viewers have seen Spike Lee's documentary that's actually playing now, 911 epicenters from 2000 and from 9/11 to 2021. It's on HBO.
Okay.
If you can,
I don't think I have. Go ahead.
Okay, if you can, it's a documentary series. So it's talking about a lot of the things that we're talking about from 9/11 to actually all the way through the insurrection and what's going on currently now. I have to give Spike Lee credit. He actually did a really good job. And actually, I was invited to be interviewed in that as well. So there's actually a couple of quick clips of me in it.
Nice.
That's not a reason to watch it. I'm just letting you know that it's actually a very well done documentary.
Okay. Thanks for shouting that out.
So check it out. And I think it's playing. I think it was playing all week, but I think it's airing tonight as well. In answer to your question, as far as let me talk about the attitude that happened. Everybody felt a feeling of vulnerability for that for a very short period of time. Where it was kind of like, I don't believe that we got hit. I don't believe that they did that here. Like no one ever saw that we thought we would get attacked here. So then you realize that we're not, the arrogance of Americans who, we know that internationally they look at Americans as being arrogant. We kind of think that we're untouchable to a certain extent, and how we do certain things. And when we realize that, it can happen here, that kind of changed your perspective a lot of what you thought was possible and conceivable. Then shortly after the feeling of vulnerability, I think the anger set in. It was, then you got angry. Then you got a lot of people saying, like, we got to do something. As you said, we have to go to war. We got to go back. We got to go get them, and that type of thing. And that's what happened. A lot of people signed up and volunteered and wanted to do something and started, going into Afghanistan, which they just came out 2 weeks ago.
Right.
They just finally left after 20 years. But then, they went after all the visceral places, Saddam Hussein and all these other things and whatever. But it was a lot of the swinging emotions. But what I can see in the middle, for a very short period of time, I saw unity. I saw unity in the city. I saw, and I guess it kind of resounded through the country, but it was more so New York, because even though what happened with 9/11 affected the country, it happened here. At least that's how New Yorkers felt. You know what I'm saying? Saying, obviously the Pentagon, happened, but that, it is not to belittle that, make that that's a great loss as well as far as the things that happened.
Right.
But being in New York, you kind of felt like they came after us. It was like, what's up? How you gonna come after us? That type of
Right.
thing. I ain't had nothing to do with none of that. And for a short period of time, it showed me the true nature, the idealistic nature of humans for a very short period of time, where it wasn't about your skin color, it wasn't about your class, it wasn't about your economic status, your political status, your sexual orientation. It was actually about, are you okay? Can I help you? What can I do for you? You know what I mean? Here, have some water. Here, let me help you walk over here. Can I give you a ride? You had people who would just like, when they open stuff up, they were just giving people rides because they were like, let me get you uptown or let me get you out to here. They had boats that help get people out of Manhattan through across the river, that type of thing. So everybody kind of came together for a short period of time. And it was like, because I remember when I took the train, because my vehicle was still in Brooklyn and I was in Manhattan and I couldn't go get it. So I had to take the train. Once they let the train start running at a certain point. And I remember getting on the train and I was covered. And people, I remember I got on the train and people kind of looking at me and with this kind of like, do I say something to them or do I not say something to them? Because I was just very, solemn and quiet. And somebody said, "Hey, were you just down at the World Trade?" I said, "Yeah." And then they were like, "Are you okay? Do you need some water?" You know what I mean? It was kind of like, which you've been in New York, you don't do that.
People even smile at each other in New York.
You don't do that. So and I remember the next day. The next morning, like after I got home, showered and everything, and I finally went to bed because obviously it was on TV. I got up the next morning and I turned on the TV. Of course, everything is on. And I didn't feel right being home and hearing about it and watching. And it's kind of, it's kind of to your point about what else could be, my heart started to go out to the people that was on the plane, like the point you made. The people who were just went to work that day. And I just felt like I did some things, I helped, but I can do more. I didn't feel like, I felt it was unfair that I was able to sit here and watch TV. And there were people who were not able to do that. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was just very kind of like sobering. That it's like all they did was go to work. All they did was try to fly back home or fly to go visit somebody or going back to school. Because remember, this was early September. You know, so you probably had some students that were like flying and to go to school, coming back from vacations and that type of thing. So that's all they did. That was a crime that they committed. If you could call that a crime. So for a moment, it was very sobering. For a moment, it was that. But then, of course, unfortunately, human nature kicks in and it starts going back to the way it was. You know what I mean? Like that we're together thing starts to separate a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, yeah, but you still over there. I don't really deal with you. For a time, it didn't matter. It was like if you stuck your hand down in the hole, you just wanted to grab somebody's hand and get them out of there. That's all you wanted. You didn't care who grabbed your hand. You just wanted to grab their hand and get them out of there. But after a while, it was kind of like, I'm taking care of my people. You take care of your people. That type of thing. So that was kind of like so the Giuliani thing. Yeah, he became America's mayor as a result of that because he was in a position because New York got attacked.
Right.
And he did what any mayor would have done, and he spoke up. And I'll give him credit. Like he did offer a sense of calm in a situation that wasn't able to be calm. You know what I mean? It was like, what can you really say that's going to give people comfort? He said what he could say. Now, what he eventually became in the recent years, I don't know who. Like, he showed his colors, but as we know, that the Agent Orange administration, because I don't want to say that dude's name,
right,
brought out the truth in a lot of people, and Giuliani was one of those that they brought the truth out. So he was who he was then, but he showed the face of the mayor to try to keep calm in a situation that was crazy. And you know what's even more crazy is that Bush stood up and said a lot of things, and Agent Orange made Bush look like he was one of the best. It made you miss Bush. And I didn't think anybody would make you miss Bush.
Right.
You know what I mean? But but you were in a situation where it was unprecedented. You unprecedented. You had nothing to go off of. Just like today, you had nothing to go off the pandemic.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? As far as like, you don't know what a worldwide lockdown is. We didn't know what that looked like.
Right.
We didn't know what a terrorist attack on the domestic terrorist attack looked like. We didn't know what that looked like. So it's almost kind of like a trial and error type of thing. I don't give Giuliani any more credit than any other mayor. He just happened to be in the driver's seat at the time. You know what I'm saying? And that didn't make him better or worse than anybody, because I think anybody that's responsible and takes their job seriously would have been able to do the same thing. But it's just like there's so many levels to it, and because you think about it, man, it's the people who got talked. Osama bin Laden was able to incite his followers to do what they did. Charles Manson incited his people to kill a bunch of people. They weren't involved in it. Think about January the 6th. Agent Orange incited people to do what they did. And the crazy thing is, they were a lot more mad about that than they were at Osama bin Laden.
Right.
They were more mad about what was happening in our own country than what a foreigner did to our country. I'm sorry, that's going something different.
No, I got you. No, and I mean, as someone who you're right there, I get it. You're from that perspective. What I want to do too is, so basically, you on the Giuliani thing, you're saying, hey, you give him credit for rising to the occasion. At least he rose to the occasion. Nobody could have predicted who he would become here, 10, 15 years later. All right, so Richard, going back to that, I wanted to sort of get your perspective of from the perspective of these are the events that happen immediately after, and then for the next few years. How do you think the country, like, do you have a point of view of how the country responded, how it affected you and sign of the times? And then we're going to move on to, we're going to progress the conversation forward after that.
My thoughts of where the country was at that time, you have to think kind of in context. You're coming off of an election where we have come out of a Democratic administration from Clinton, 2 administrations. There is for the first time in a very long time, a budget surplus. Then there's an election in which the state of Florida, my home state, is in contest in a hanging Chad, and it's between Gore and Bush. You also at the time have the rise in the Tea Party, which is now the precursor to everything that we see now, where we see the rise in nationalism within the United States, the early germination of it. You also see where we now are, Frank, you talked about the axis of evil, how we said that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction, how we were in somewhat of a little bit of a recession. If you remember, the technology bubble had burst. And typically how our country came out of recessions was generally to have a war of some sort. So when I think about the context of this, I think about also how the United States has, traditionally over the last, several decades, tried to have a hand within the Middle East in some sort of way, whether it was Iran with the Shah and the overthrow of the Shah and the killing of the Shah, ultimately in the rise of the Ayatollah Khomeini. If you remember, there were attacks against American targets, military targets around the world, bombings and that sort. They bombed a ship. Can't remember the name of the ship, but bombed a ship. So you had the all of this kind of coming to play now that all the things that have been happening outside of the United States are now happening inside the United States. And so now we are galvanized against this common enemy, Al Qaeda, led by Osama bin Laden, right? And there was a feeling of unity of us against them, of the United States against this part of the world, this kind of evil. We want to bring freedom to this part of the world. But I also think that, we have to understand that aggression begets aggression. We talk about, force recognizes force. And I think that on some level, when we were thinking about 9/11 and the ramifications of it, is that, there's been a lot of war on this planet. And the only way to kind of defeat this war on the planet is to reduce the conditions for it. And I don't hear a lot of people talking about how do we reduce the conditions for war, for scarcity, for people to feel the need to push power from wherever their base is. I mean, you saw how quickly Afghanistan fell. I mean, we basically left, and within days, it was in Taliban control. Days. They thought it was going to be months.
Hours.
Hours. Okay.
Real talk.
Hours. Okay. Real talk. So when I think about 9/11, it just makes me reflect on all of these various things. And I always come back to, how can we increase our humanity? How can we increase our ability to care? How can we move from a scarcity mentality to an abundance mentality?
What I'd like to add to it is some of the things that maybe are regretful, some of the effects that really I think maybe are not necessarily so good is, number one, I do believe it was like a serious miscalculation that when we felt like we as a country can go in and invade another country, invade our way into another country and deal with this from a traditional weapon, military mindset. Remember, there was a choice that we had. We could have chosen to take more of a targeted, treated as a criminal act, what happened, as opposed to sort of what we did when we just collectively called for, change, regime change, and controlling full areas, that cultures and societies. I think that's one thing, and that has a crazy effect. If you guys remember, police departments didn't necessarily have like militarized, here domestically, the militarization of our police forces, the way that we changed up. You're in New York, you could probably speak more to this than I can, Donovan, just how the surveillance went up like crazy after that, all because of the Department of Homeland Security, how it changed people's lives. Sounds like you want to kind of jump in on that, Donovan.
No, I was just you're right on that. You're right on point with that, and exactly, yes, everything like heightened. You're because it was kind of like fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. So it was like we're not going to be caught out there. Like you now you believe what was formerly impossible is possible. You have to look at everything. So if you, and I can tell you this personally, this happened. If you drove a van or SUV or a station wagon, stuff like that, you got pulled over. You got pulled over because I had a truck. I had an SUV. I got pulled over a few times. Now, don't get me wrong. It wasn't. It was okay, because you were like, yeah, go ahead.
You kind of understood it.
It's cool. Yo,
right?
Check it. No, go ahead. Do what you got to do. Like, take a look.
Right.
Look at all of them. Yeah, check them too. Because what we just went through, I don't ever want to go through again. You know what I'm saying? So whatever you have to do, same thing with the airports, with the TSA, you know, and you know the things that happened with that, where you had to wait longer, you had to get there earlier, and you know things like that. I'm like, no, go ahead, do what you got to do. Check everybody. Oh, is that sharp? No, that shouldn't be here. You know what I mean? It was like whatever the case was. So yes, everything was heightened. Everything was extremely heightened because, but you also had to do something because the people were screaming out for what are you going to do? Just like they always look at government and say, okay, this has happened. What you going to do about it? What are you doing about it? As if they have this magic wand that could just fix everything, you know. But you also have to make some kind of effort to show that you're doing something. And then once again, human nature kicks in. Now it becomes inconvenient. Now it becomes an annoyance. Now it becomes a why are you stopping me? Why are you checking me? Why you are violating my rights? And this is and that. You know what I mean? So
quick question on that one. So I feel like in many ways, one of the other things that don't necessarily talk about as much is the fact that, hey, in a very real way, the Muslim culture was indicted, and you know, we know that those were extremists that came in and did what they did, right? But then if you wearing the turban, if you wearing the full Muslim garb, if anybody thought you were, connected to Muslim, I'm sure that there had to be a lot. So kind of speak on that again, because you saw that as well.
yeah,
What would you
no,
take on that?
definitely. If you were traditional Muslim, where you wore a jihad and
Uh-huh.
you wore the garb and things like that, oh yeah, you definitely was targeted, which was unfortunate.
Yes.
You know, and but but that speaks to the hypocrisy of so many things on that level where you had, you know, slave owners and domestic terrorists that look just like that cop or that looks like just like that person. So are we supposed to say you're the same because people that look like you or came from the same place you did those things? Yes, it was extremists who did what they did to America, you know, but not everybody that's Muslim is that. Now, what was the argument was is that America trained them to do what they did for 9/11. They got their training here.
Right. If you
they
go
got
back.
they got their training here. They learned how to fly planes and they know how to operate that right here. We taught them. You know, so then it becomes that type of thing where you look at it and you say, well, it could be you too. You know, that's the justification because it could be you too. We don't know, but it could be you too. You could be a plant, you know, that's here, and in 15, 20 years, you're going to be activated and you're going to, you know, commit this atrocity. And we're going to we're going to educate you. We're gonna educate you. You could go to our schools. We'll educate you, teach you how to do things. We'll teach you our financial, our judicial, you know, our federal ways of being, and then as far as technically, you know, how to operate servers, you know, IT and you know things like that, to be, you know, to be able to do a lot of different things and engineering, and you know, understand how. Because remember, where they struck the buildings, that wasn't by accident. They had to strike the buildings in that area that they struck the buildings. That was a plan. Because if they struck the building too high, the towers would not have fallen. It just would have destroyed the top of the towers. You know what I mean? And you know, so and then they couldn't have gotten any lower because they had no clearance to get that low. You know, in order to get the plane to have the full effect. So they knew that they had to strike. If you look at it, they basically were struck in this relatively the same height. That's engineering. That's understanding the structure of how it works and what it's going to take to actually collapse the buildings. Because that's not, they didn't just want to attack the buildings, they wanted to collapse the buildings.
Bring them down is what you're saying. So you're saying that, go ahead.
And they learned that here.
Got it. You know what? And I just want to underline that part. And I'm gonna throw it to Richard. Just that you got to remember. So when you have this thinking, it became such a stereotype that if you guys remember, like I remember some of the comedy show, programs at the time, sort of mocking and spoofing because at the time it seems like I remember like these Al Qaeda videos coming on, and was it the Osama bin Laden? You guys remember that where it would be a video that would pop on that the news would kind of hype up and be like, well, this is the latest video on Al Qaeda, and and that happened so much that it became a spoof. People were spoofing it, and you just had this whole national predisposition of just looking around and suspecting anyone who was connected to Muslim. There was even if you guys remember back in that time, a TV show, Jack Bauer. What was the name of that TV show?
24.
24, where there was a whole storyline following that, where they what you said, Donovan. I think they ended up being plants. So it was just a part of the cultural zeitgeist. It really was like, this collective cultural fear of that, and you could see how maybe in one way it was justified because of the nature of the people who actually attacked us in that way, but at the same time was not justified because we exhibited an inability to see people as people and to recognize that, hey, come on, not all Muslims by any stretch had that same ideology that led to what happened. I'm gonna throw it to Richard on that one, see if you want to mention anything on that, and I'm gonna advance the conversation.
A couple of things. I think that we have to be thinking, in moments of national crisis, you want leaders that are not just looking for something to do. You want leaders that are thoughtful, that have a goal, a direction, a focus on what's right and true and proper. You don't want someone kind of flitting around and making rash decisions just to show that they're doing something. Because I think we've seen, certainly within the last administration where that has happened, and the effects have been devastating and long lasting. And when I think about 9/11, and I think about leadership, and I think about what it's supposed to be, leaders, leaders are supposed to lead you through and out of and get you on the other side of a crisis. We did see that in some ways. We saw the leadership that got us into it. We saw some of the leadership that got us through it. We saw it up, and I would say through it, because I really think we're not even out of it yet. I mean, although we've just withdrawn from Afghanistan, I mean, there are going to be effects from that for decades, in terms of foreign policy, in terms of the world in which we live in. But, I think that we always have to be thinking, I resist the phrase, human nature, because human behavior happens within a context. It doesn't, there's nothing absolute about human behavior. Human behavior happens in a context. And when humans have a context and a culture of collaboration, of help, of caring, of compassion, you see more of it. But if the context is capitalism, it is get more for me, which we saw in this last pandemic. Stores had to limit certain quantities of things because people were more concerned about themselves than they were anyone else. And that's a dangerous thing to have happen, because then you have a scarcity mentality where people get very aggressive, sometimes even violent with one another. So I think, in moments of crisis, me and my family, we always think, hey, we always live in a moment of gratitude. We stay focused in the moment on each other, on what we have, not what we don't have, and where we can help out, we do. And these are all lessons that, as I think about and reflect on 9/11, that after that happened, have served me well in the past 20 years, is to just reflect on those things, because those are the things that really matter.
I got you. Thank you for that. What I want to do now is just very quickly, just by way of advancing it, we're going to kind of take two steps here, because I appreciate the time that you all have been doing. And this is a Saturday. I know y'all want to be all day in here talking about this. Let me say this. I was doing some research, and I ran across in the New York Times a really short video that kind of explores a little bit of how people are are learning about 9/11, for those who are younger, for those who did not experience this. And it kind of goes into the conversation of how 9/11 is even being taught. So I'm going to play that, but then I want to use that to maybe pivot us towards something that we can't help but think about, and that's the um, 9/11 conspiracy theories, which are out there, they are present, and relate directly. There's very real questions that kind of need to be answered about it that lead to these conspiracy theories, and that's a part of how people are kind of addressing or looking into 9/11 also. So I'm going to share this real quick. I'll go ahead and play this. Let me know if you guys see what did these events teach you about America. You guys see that?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna go ahead and play that, and then move forward. Here we go.
The response after 9/11 told me about the US that they kind of want justice, but in a really weird way, kind of, because it's not really justice to bomb a country.
लोगों की राय ये होती है कि अमेरिका ने 9/11 के बाद जो है वो ऑपरेशन जिसका मकसद तालिबान और दहशतगर्दों का मुकाबला करना था वो अफगानिस्तान पर कब्जे को करार देते हैं.
I really vividly remember, I think it was Bush, I think it was that president, him doing all these speeches and saying very emotive kind of slogans like you're with us or against us, and the whole the whole war on terror, as if 9/11 justified everything else that happened.
ربما كانت هي يعني الحجة الناجحة التي من خلالها ضرب جو بوش عصفورين بحجر واحد فأسقط طالبان في أفغانستان وبعدها ذهب إلى العراق لإسقاط صدام حسين.
My institution always told us that America has this peace guard role in the world.
자국민에 대한 엄청난 희생을 줬기 때문에 그런 행위를 할 수밖에 없었다. 그런 보복 행위를 할 수밖에 없었다라고 생각을 하고, 또 한편으로는 좀 그런 이라크 내 전쟁이나 혹은 아프가니스탄 전쟁 내에서 좀 미국의 행위가 좀 과격하지 않았나라고 생각을 합니다.
So you see, just wanted to throw that in just to so you can see a little bit about how cultures and people from all over the world, different countries, are trying to understand what happened and are thinking about it from their perspective and their points of view. And it's just a very nuanced, very how you feel about it often it relates to like where you are in the world, and it's just really interesting to see that in a lot of ways there's not going to be one collective understanding about that. People are going to feel differently about it, and because of so many different reasons. I'm bringing on Private Nobody now. We have I met Private Nobody, came on one of my earlier streams, and he has since been sharing with me a lot of different perspectives on a lot of different things. And a lot of those are definitely falling into the realm of conspiracy theories. And if you know me, you know that I'm kind of here for it. I'm down with the conspiracy theories. I'll at least hear them out. And for me, as a critical thinker, and I think every brother up here is a critical thinker, if there are things that should sort of generate questions about, then hey, we need to think about those things. For me, one of those things was what you mentioned earlier, Donovan, and that was World Trade Center Building 7, and how that was. Like, you guys know that building did not get hit. It was, there were fires associated with the other two buildings that burned throughout, and throughout the history of mankind. And in fact, it hasn't happened before then, and it hasn't happened since, that a building like that has come straight down. And I'm wondering if I still have the video, because I went and found it. I might have to go back if we want to show it. And maybe while someone else is talking, I'll bring it up. But that was straight up. It came down like an implosion. It was free fall speeds, straight down, and it was random when it did. Nobody knew when it was going to come down. As Donovan mentioned, he said earlier, like it seemed like people were kind of waiting. Hey, that building's burning. They're waiting for it to come down, and then sure enough, it came down. Before I throw it to Donovan, since I brought Private Nobody on, I wanted to give him an opportunity to share his perspective. I'm kind of speaking ahead of time. I believe you're about to give us some information that might be down that conspiracy theory path, Private.
I don't like the terminology that you
Okay,
use.
talk to me. Then I'm using. So just tell it how you see it.
Okay, I'll start with something my father taught me long ago, and it tends to prove out over the years. Things are not as they appear to be. We also look at the backdrop of history, and we see certain traits permeate, especially when you're dealing with the media. Unfortunately, the story that they gave us cannot be remotely true based on physics, mathematics, and various other sciences. And you have many, many top professionals that debunk the media version. And like you said about the implosion, that's something that they all seem to agree on, that there had to be an implosion to go along with the explosion, but the explosion from the planes was not deadly enough to bring those buildings down as they did.
All right, so let's do this. Let's start with what you believe. That's because here, what we want to do is, instead of kind of talking about it and what people said and all that, we're here. Let's start with what you believe to be the case of actually what happened, and try to bring up, say, one thing that you think presents the strongest case and your reasons for it, and then I'm going to throw it to Richard and Donovan.
Okay.
Yeah, let's try to do it. Mm-hmm.
Now, I come from the legal perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the most immediate things that occurred right after that was the Patriot Act. And that was the beginning of quick erosions of our rights. Mm-hmm. Now, keep in mind, the Patriot Act, the amount of information.
So what is it that you believe exactly? Because you're going to your proof right now. You're saying the Patriot Act happened. What specifically, I want you to start out, this is what I think happened. Do you think that the government, what is your theory? Is it that the government brought them down? Is it that something else happened? What do you feel actually happened that day? Because that's what we're talking about now.
Well, I believe people of interest, I won't say the government per se, because the government, believe it or not, is an agent for other entities.
Okay, so we'll just stop there. Go back to what you believe. I'm trying to pin you down. What is it that you believe? You say that, okay, entities did what exactly?
The higher ups, or the true powers that be, whatever name you want to use it, the elite, the Illuminati, whatever you want to label that, had a vested interest in that happening to bring about the causation of the Patriot Act and other erosions of rights. Keep in mind that the United States of America is basically the last bastion in the world that have guns.
Right. Okay, we're going to hold it there real quick because you're about to go deep and you've now told us what you believe happened. You believe that this was somehow deliberate. It was a deliberate act in order to bring about the erosion of our rights, correct?
No, it's multiple issues. And if you notice over history, a lot of times when these things happen, it's not just one thing.
Well, what's the main issue or the main one or two?
Okay, they wanted control over in Afghanistan with the poppy fields.
Okay, got it.
They wanted control over Iraq with the oil.
Got it.
Okay, so there are multiple, even what we're going through right now in the pandemic, there are multiple issues being attacked simultaneously. They don't just go after one thing.
Right, but I'm trying to stay focused on 9/11, so that's what we're talking about right now. Okay, so I want to throw it to Donovan or Richard, whoever wants to jump in. I'm not even sure if you guys want to dive into this, but what's your take?
I'm not clear. I'm unclear as to what Private Nobody's premise is. I'm unclear. You know, if 9/11, the crashing of planes into the towers was done in an intentional way to bring about the Patriot Act to erode personal freedoms in this country, namely the right to bear arms. That's where this sounds like it's going. You know, if that's what we're talking about, I just want to get clear on that. And does Private Nobody have a name other than Private Nobody, or is Private Nobody the anonymous person kind of in the background talking?
So you probably want to know what your name is. So what I do normally is I just let people come on board however they want to name themselves. So if that's how Private Nobody wants to roll, then I won't. I'm not trying to dox him.
Yeah, I'm a little skeptical, of
when
folks
you're anonymous.
Yeah, when folks are anonymous and they have these theories. I'm skeptical about that, and the second thing is that I just want to get clear about what the premise is.
Gotcha. Okay, so did he just say that on that one point? Did he phrase that pretty accurately for you, Private Nobody?
No, that's not my premise that he articulated.
What's your premise? Because here's the thing, you need to articulate a very specific premise that we can talk about. This can't be an opportunity for you to talk about, a bunch of different things and kind of spout out whatever your theories are, and then you kind of relate them to each other. And I mean, right now, the subject here is the 9/11, the disaster that happened. And, we can kind of dive into the conspiracy theories, but we've got to agree on what it is that you think happened that somehow was outside of what our collective understanding happened is.
It is unfortunate that at times to get a purview of an incident that you can look at it singularly without looking at the whole. And when I say looking at the whole, it's accumulation of incidents over the years. I'm a student of history.
Right. Okay. So here's the thing. That's where you're going to have trouble with talking to people about whatever your worldview is, your perspective is, because you have to convince everybody of what your full worldview is before you can get people to agree with whatever the specific thing that you have.
It's just like in the legal profession. When you present a thesis point of contention, oftentimes you don't go straight to the point. You build a case around it in order for it to be understood. Now, I can say
but you build a case to culminate to a conclusion of X. And that's what I think that we are trying to get to is what is your conclusion?
Correct.
And because right now it's unclear. It is unclear what the conclusion is. And this is the problem that I have with conspiracy theories is that they're convoluted, they're multi-layered, multifaceted, they are slippery, they are, it's like a prism. I just keep turning and it keeps changing. And I'm just like, I just want to get down to, what is a premise of many premises that you believe is the result of 9/11 and planes crashing into? Is it the erosion of civil rights? Is it the right to bear arms? Is it, is it the American interest in oil and opium? Is it, what is it?
Right.
And if it's all four of those things, then okay, it could be all four of those things, but all four of those things have to point to, hey, this is the motive.
Right.
The United States is trying to do something by doing these things. And that's what I think the three of us are trying to understand.
Well, let me let Donovan say something.
Frank, did I sum that up? I mean, I don't know.
You did. I just wanted to make sure Donovan didn't feel left out. You good, Donovan?
I'm good. Good.
Okay, Private Nobody. You understand what Richard is asking here?
Oh yeah, what Richard said, I believe all four are included plus more, but I can't prove anything. It's I have no proof before me, and I can't rely on the media based on this history. So I don't think anybody knows.
And I think we can agree. Here's what I feel like 100%. Like, for example, I'm going to bring up a very specific example: World Trade Center 7. For me, it doesn't make sense that World Trade Center 7 came down the way that it did. That just being so. Does anybody have any arguments in support of or against my assertion that something fishy is going on with World Trade Center 7?
One theory was on that one was.
Wait, hold on real quick, because Donovan's been waiting. Okay, go ahead. All right, go ahead, Private. Go ahead, Private.
One theory, which I don't know is true or not, is that during that time, the Trade Center held the largest gold reserve in the United States.
I read that too.
And it came up missing.
I read that too.
So that could have been what was going on with 7.
Okay, and that's a big deal.
Can I ask a question?
Wait.
I have to ask a question.
Go.
I gotta ask a question.
Go ahead.
Okay. The largest gold reserve. I don't know that to be true, and I don't know it to be untrue. But let's just assume, for the sake of argument, that it is true.
Okay.
The fact that it went missing means what exactly? And it points to what exactly?
Okay, so here you go. See, if that is true, then it leads one to think that there was some planning involved with 9/11, because in order for WTC7 to come down the way that it did, it had to be wired for implosion. It actually had to be, when you go into any construction site, you guys know they don't just blow up buildings. It's a controlled.
It's very strategic.
Yes. Yeah. It's very controlled. So if it's true, that means that something went down ahead of time in order to pull that building down. And if that's the case, then the question is, okay, well, what was going on? So it opens up this maybe a Pandora's box of what in the heck is going on if that happens to be true, which was what your question was. Donovan, finally jumping in. What's up?
Okay. Well, a couple things. Well, one, it's known that the attacks were previously planned, and the government knew about it. They got word that there was a possibility that there was going to be attacks. They don't know what was going to happen. They didn't know what was going to happen. But word was out throughout whatever their process of intel gathering and things like that.
I read that.
There was notifications that something was possibly going to be happening.
I read that too.
That's a fact. That's a fact. And in regards to this, obviously there can be dozens and dozens of conspiracy theories that can run right along, right in concert with that, and you can take it till the cows come home and just branch off into all these leaves and of things, of thoughts that can come along with that. Now, as far as World Trade Center 7, what I can speak from the actual practicality of of what actually happened. What actually happened, the tangibleness of it getting destroyed. Could there have been an additional reason to do what they did, knowing that if the towers were to fall, and the way they're designed to fall, once again, it's an engineering thing, because they were designed that if something was to happen, it's supposed to implode on itself, not fall over. You know what I'm saying? That's the way.
I hear you talking, and one of these days I want you to show some receipts on that, because I read something else. But cool, I hear where you're going. I'm tracking with you.
Oh, okay. And that could be very well, but that was one of the things, in my understanding, it was designed for implosion.
Okay.
Now, the other thing is that what I do know what happened is that as you saw the towers fall, there was a lot of fallout that came throughout. So there were several buildings and storefronts and things like that were destroyed. The police department, or the fire department that was right across the street, like because you just got caught with the debris and the wind rush and all that stuff. Tower 7, which was not far, got caught up in a lot of that because it actually caught fire. So it was standing for a good amount of time. The foundation was on fire. Now, once again, like with everything, conspiracy theories can just countlessly abound as far as what it was. And could there have been a link to it? There's a possibility. But I know, tangibly speaking, is that along with a lot of other buildings that were smaller were on fire because of the debris and the blowout that happened from World Trade 7. So that's why they had to wait for that building to go down. That's why they had to wait for that building to go down, because they weren't sure if it was going to fall or not fall. So they waited for it to fall. Now, as far as the gold reserve, did it go? My question is, was it missing before the attack, or was it missing as a result of the attack? Because if it was missing as a result of the attack, it got buried. So it's not missing; it's buried.
Oh, wait till you got to hear. So check this out, Donovan. What I'm gonna do is throw it to Private Nobody, and this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go ahead and put Private Nobody on our courtesy clock. You guys from if you know me from my former shows, I have a courtesy clock. Private Nobody, because I don't want us to get to get lost really in the conspiracy theories. So I'm gonna give you your time to just speak it how you see it. I'm gonna play some stuff at the same time too for you, Private Nobody. So I'm giving you the floor now and let you get it all out, whatever your perspective is. Go ahead and throw you on the clock. That's 3 minutes. You got it.
Okay. It really won't take that long because it's not a lot of information that I can, what receipts that I can produce at this time. Although at one time I was part of one of these 9/11 groups back in the day. The bottom line is that I look at what happened afterwards. And what happened afterwards was a big blow to this country, to the people, whether they realized it or not. And part of what happened came out of the Patriot Act is affecting us to this day. And so that's what I see, where it was taking away our rights, and not just gun rights, other rights also, to control the people to the point that they were able to do what they did when the pandemic came about. So it was a systematic thing of what happened thereafter. You look at what happened during, but a lot of times you see the proof after. So that's the way I look at it. And I'll leave it at that.
Okay, so you see here, I just played a really small snippet of what that looked like. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So you see here, just from we can slow this down if you wanted to, but we can see that the beginning of the collapse. This is a building again that was not hit, but was simply burning. Just straight up free fall collapse, going straight down. That has never happened in the history of mankind, and it has not happened since, a building coming down that way.
No, it was assisted.
Say again?
It was assisted.
Oh, well, right. That's what we're saying. All I'm saying is I'm stating a kind of a fact here. I'm not, without trying to say what happened. We have never witnessed a building like this go straight down like that. Just with no, without being any type of apparent damage or anything. We've just never seen that unless it was imploded. Richard?
Yeah, a couple of things. I'll say this, is that, I am skeptical if someone asserts something yet doesn't have an articulated argument about a particular point of view. Secondly, just because I haven't witnessed something happen ever again, ever, doesn't mean it can't happen. You know, for many, many years, people thought there would never be a sub 4-minute mile. They said it was humanly impossible. It is routine. It happens a lot, so just that's the first thing. And just because it's unexplained doesn't mean, based upon knowledge today, doesn't mean that it was a conspiracy or there was something nefarious behind it. It just means it's unexplained. That's all it means. We don't have the capacity to explain it yet. Maybe in several years we will have the capacity to explain it. Maybe it was just maybe it's just a freak accident. I mean, think about what happened in Miami with the collapse of that condo building. Okay, we're figuring out now. Okay, there was long history, cracks in the pool and this. Yeah, but it came straight down. Not all of it, but it came straight down.
But go ahead. We can ask. We might. We don't necessarily have to come up with answers, but I feel like we can definitely ask the question.
Yeah, do I think that I do not believe that 9/11 is an elaborate conspiracy by elites, be they the Rothschilds, the Illuminatis, Skull and Bones, whomever you want to name. I don't believe that. I don't believe that is the case. I do believe that there were things that were done afterwards that in way called into question, an erosion of civil rights. However, there were certainly, and well documented, in many different sources, how good people stood in the way of surveilling Americans without warrants. That does not happen. It does not happen. It's not supposed to happen as a part of our system. So, the Patriot Act is concerning, as it is always. However, I don't think that 9/11 was put into motion to put things into place so that we could have the Patriot Act. And therefore, when the pandemic was released, because it was another conspiracy, so that we could continue to take people's civil liberties away and inject them with a vaccine that ultimately will be used to control them in some sort of way. This is too fantastical for me at this point. Yeah.
So
I need some proof.
Right. All right. So check it out. So I felt like a decent or semi-thorough conversation about 9/11 just could not take place without at least some discussion of or mention of the fact that there are conspiracy theories and 9/11 truthers. We've done that, and we have we've shared some perspectives. So in order to wrap this up, because now we're coming up on 2 hours total, which I think is a good number for us to not have our whole day on it. To wrap it up, I want us to then let's think a little bit about what our takeaways are personally, or what our takeaways from 9/11 on this 20th anniversary should be, maybe for everybody, either takeaways that you have that in terms of how you proceed and move forward, or maybe what others should have. And I'll start, and let me tell you that I do appreciate that we have different points of views that are being expressed. They are all worthy of being expressed. That's how we always go and learn, and that's how we're exposed to different information. So I'll start with Private Nobody on, okay, well, for you, and I'm put you on the clock, what are your takeaways from this, or what are the takeaways that you feel like we all should have moving forward from the 9/11 experience? And I'll put you on the clock.
Well, looking at the information that has been published since the event, in conjunction with history, should be considered. Because unfortunately, in our lives, history tends to repeat itself. And it's repeating itself again. So look back, consider, and then come up with your own conclusion. That's basically all I can add to that.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And for being really concise too about what the takeaways are. Well taken. I don't think anybody can have a qualm with that kind of takeaway. Brother Donovan, you want to kind of jump in on what your takeaways are, especially from such a unique perspective that you have, sir? Oh, wait. I'm sorry, Donovan. Unmute yourself. I think you was kind of playing with the mic, so I muted you, or playing with your camera, so I muted it. Now, yeah, you can go ahead.
Oh, thank
Unmute.
you. Sorry about that. My
No
apologies.
problem.
Yeah. Well, I mean, basically, 9/11, the 9/11 experience is just an experience that I'll never be able to separate from my mind, as far as what I saw, what I experienced, and what I felt. Something that I've never felt before, and I hopefully will feel that way again in my entire life. And I don't wish that on anyone, as well as the families that were affected. So many. I think, I mean, a lot was said. Conspiracies can abound, and they could just come from endless directions, and they're ongoing. Um, just like with anything, even along the line with I say Private Benjamin, with Private Nobody said, sorry, is that you can kind of take your own, look at history. History will show you that, there's been people and there's entities that took advantage of every catastrophic situation in some way, shape, or form, some way, somehow. It might not have been their intention, but they saw an opportunity to make it work for them and theirs. And I think 9/11 is no different as far as that is concerned. I think it was a sad display of the ugliness of our world. But it hasn't changed what's been the same for centuries, in our country, in our world. It's like this, it's hate. Hate, is at the bottom line of this. And they wanted to cause destruction. They wanted to cause chaos. They wanted to throw the world in an upheaval. And they know by attacking World Trade Center would accomplish a lot of that. Did they care about the families involved? No. They just wanted to throw the country in a tailspin, and they successfully have done that. So, the takeaway from it is that anything is possible. Don't believe we're untouchable, and maybe we need to look at ourselves a little bit more, and to see how we show up to the rest of the world a little bit differently than we have. We're not above anybody else. We just happen to be here in this country. We could be the same people in a different country, in a different situation, in a different system, and we need to remember that. It's a privilege to be where we are. But it's we're still humans at the end of the day. And with that, my brother, I just want to say thank you once again for having me come on. I actually really have to hop. I sent you a message. I got to leave at 4 o'clock. But I want to thank you for including me in this discussion. I thought it was great.
Thank you.
Richard. It was great meeting you, sir. And you're a brother to this brother, so you my brother as well. Private Nobody, was great hearing your perspective and your interpretation of things. So with that, I just want to say y'all have a good evening. Enjoy the rest of your day. Once again, this day always hits me a little different than most, just because of my connection. But y'all stay well. Love to your families, and everybody be blessed.
Thank you. You bless. All right, brother.
Peace.
Good stuff. All right. So, good timing then, all the way out. Looks like we're gonna close it with what your takeaways are, Richard. And I might say a couple things at the very end. What you got?
Okay. My takeaways are really focused around a personal circle of influence, in that I think that we have to, when we are confronted with these tragedies of life, whether it's the pandemic, whether it's the space shuttle blowing up, whether it's 9/11, is we have to look at how we're conducting ourselves each and every day. And are there ways that we can extend kindness? Is there a way that we can extend compassion? How can we be more neighborly, help our fellow man? How can we, focus on the love in our life, the people in our life that are important to us, and put that all into perspective in the milieu of our life of work and community and church and everything else. And that when I think about the impact of 9/11 on my life, I think about how it's just helped me to get focused on what's important, and how, I've tried to affect the people around me in the way that it affected me, to live my life more in alignment with what I consider to be my North Star. So I'll just end it there and say, 9/11 for me, is a very sad day. It causes me to reflect, to get focused, and to ensure that I'm putting first things first.
I'm 100% with you on that. I think that was an excellent summation as well, Richard. I appreciate you for that. I'm actually going to say a couple things here. First, I'll sum it up, and then I'm gonna go back over here to Blind Guy, because I want to thank Blind Guy, his wife, their life, for something that they did. So for me, I guess my takeaways would be right along the lines of really what everybody here stated. And I guess the only way to add my spin on it would be, for me, I think it's valuable that we look at what happened and we really try to understand the context, the historical context, because for most people, this is history, or for a lot of people, this is history. And over time, it's just going to become history for more and more people. And, to really study it, really try to dive into the conditions that that brought an attack like this about. There was a whole lot. They would say that there was a lot of that they were responding to, American interference in different places, and their ideology objected to that, and so they wanted to strike. And there's a lot of point of views about that. Try to understand what the world was like before that happened, because it really was different in a lot of ways before that happened, and try to understand the impact that this attack had on the collective psyche of the country. And as such, this country did, how when it reacted, it changed the world in so many different ways based on the actions that we took in this country. And then to underline what Richard talked about, just the human side of it, the human cost. Try to rise above just being quick to think that a Muslim is automatically out to harm you, or automatically out to do, something like this. Try not to see Muslims in general as enemies, and that would be for anybody. Try to rise above what we automatically see and experience in the culture as much as we can. I've having lived through that, and now having lived through the pandemic, sort of like what Richard said, it's like, whoa, we're living through events that really have changed the world, and so try to put that in perspective, and try to look at it in such a way where you grow from it, or you're better from it in some way, as opposed to having it take you backward. I want to say thank you to Blind Guy, his wife, their life, for supporting me with the Buy Frank a Coffee. They brought me a bunch of coffees during this, and for supporting the program, and for anyone else that I may have missed who actually sent me some. Actually, in previous streams as well. Just any financial support, of course, helps the show, and it shows how much you really support what what I'm trying to do with getting the information out. And for those of you who are here who either just can't support or just choose not to, but who are here to support by participating and by being in the chat and contributing to the conversations and being on the panel, that includes Private Nobody, that includes Richard Smith, Donovan Lambert. I appreciate you all coming through and supporting in this way. This type of thing, as you guys know, is a very challenging thing to do, and we want to always make it worth your while, make it worth your time to kind of talk about things in a way that in some way, you can be positively impacted by. So with that, I am going to say thank you again for being here. We've been here for just over 2 hours. This time is valuable. I appreciate you spending it here with me, and I promise to keep going and continue to try to bring topics to you that will impact you in a positive way. All right. So with that, I love to play my outro. If you have any comments you want to share while the outro is going on, please share them. I'll throw them up on the screen. And until the next time, I'm out for now.